Jonathan Grant here again with Squad Help. We're back with some advanced naming strategies that we've learned from launching over 30,000 projects via our unique platform. Grant, today we're talking about how to use audience feedback to pick the perfect name. Why is this important?
The naming process often becomes very me focused. You're looking at lots of names. A lot of times you're even thinking of names, and the first thing you have to do is say, do I like this or not? And that's just the nature of making any sort of decision. But that shouldn't be the end point of the decision. So audience testing allows you to step outside of yourself and get feedback from real people so you can make a better decision than if you were going to do it alone.
Absolutely. That's great. And so who do we ask? Where do we start from, the types of people we're asking?
Absolutely. There's really four main categories that we typically see people happen, and each one has some benefits and some pitfalls that I want to go through really quick. You have your mentors and your peers. I like mentors and peers because a lot of times they're going to, especially if you're in a niche industry, they might be able to give you some feedback that you wouldn't be able to get otherwise. You're launching into a biotech business, and your peers that you've gained, maybe you've been in the industry for 8 to 20 years, they're going to be able to have a different opinion than maybe your generalist entrepreneur friends who might be, doing something completely different. The pitfall is they may not be naming experts. Probably not. Even people who have named 1 or 2 businesses are not naming experts, even though oftentimes they think they are. So you just have to be careful with how you ask and how you take that feedback, and we'll swing back to that in a little bit. Number 2 is your team. So this isn't always the case, but a lot of times you'll have started building a team even before you have the name. Why is this great? You can start getting some buy-in from your team, which helps them feel included. And all these, that's, I think, a really great reason. You can get outside feedback. You can have really good dialogues around the brand and where it should be. What's the pitfall? Having too much of a democracy around the brand can make it too vanilla, and you will never get 100% buy-in. Every single person loves the exact same brand direction. That's not going to happen. So if you're thinking that can be a huge pitfall where you start then to question yourself and try and find the perfect brand that every single person thinks is brilliant. It's never going to happen.
Never.
Your audience is another great one. You can get some feedback from specific people who may be interested in purchasing your product. This is your audience. Absolutely great. The biggest pitfall of this is it's very hard to find often a very specific person, especially again if you're going into some of these niche businesses. Because it just that's the nature of polling. And another pitfall is asking too small of a sampling. So I asked 3 people in my audience that I know and they said this and this. Well, that's nice, but you have to take that with a grain of salt. So that's the plus and the minus. So another group is a general demographic. The reason we like a general demographic is because it's easier to find oftentimes than a specific. So if you're going to invest in audience testing, which is part of our crowdsourcing process that we really believe in, a general demographic is a really great way to go because you don't have to invest a huge amount into finding the audience, but you can still get some great feedback. When it comes to a general demographic, you have to be careful and take it with a grain of salt because it's not your specific demographic, but they're really great for finding overall trends. It's really great for if a name does really poorly, maybe there's some negative things that you miss, so on and so forth. So this general demographic is one of the things, a group that we think is super powerful, again, because it's easy to find and it still gives you some really great insights. Of course, when it comes to this whole process, you still don't want to throw your own opinion out. So you want to step back and ask yourself, what makes sense to you.
Those are some great points, Grant. So after that, what should I never ask? What to never ask in an audience test? And
this is one of my favorite topics to talk about when it comes to audience testing. people don't realize, and even when I say this, I don't think many people believe me, but I promise you, I've done this so many times, hundreds of times. Asking the wrong question has derailed so many naming
Oh,
projects. And the biggest question that people ask is, do you like this name? And it seems perfectly plausible. You know, you go to your friend, you like it. But people do not have the functional capability to tell you if they like a name or not, because it's an esoteric idea. What does it mean to like a word on a piece of paper that will become your brand? What does that mean?
right.
Does it mean, do you get the right initial associations?
Right.
And some of the things that I've seen, like when you see a word on a piece of paper that's brand new to you, your brain just tries to grab onto something. I was talking to somebody the other day, and they said one person on their team out of 10 had this weird connotation with it, and it had to do like saying a name in an accent. And I was listening to the story going, are you serious? Like, no, the brain, when met with something that it doesn't understand, it's just going to grab stuff. But it's not going to do that when you have a brand behind it. When you have a tagline and you have colors and you have logos and they're on your website and they see the pictures, they start to understand what it is. It's not going to just grab at something sporadically. Right. So you have to throw some of those odd, weird connotations that just pop up, and they come up. Somebody told me it reminds them of a cereal brand because that's what they ate this morning. It's like, throw that all away. And the other thing that do you like this is going to elicit is everybody's pet theory on naming. You need to have a pragmatic name. Who said? Well, I've named one business before in my life, and I've spent an entirety of 45 minutes thinking about what a good name means and read one article online, and I know that's what you're inviting. This person who doesn't know much about branding. Again, even if they're a great entrepreneur, they've probably only named one or two brands. Now, if you do have somebody who has named a bunch of brands, maybe they are a naming expert and they're on your team, I almost never see it, then listen, ask them which one they like all you want. That's fundamentally the perfect question. But again, the point is that most people don't have the context, or the background, or the understanding to give you an answer. Just like if you came to me and asked me what I thought of your, latest, science formula, I would look at you and I'd say, I don't know. I wouldn't tell you, and that's again the background that most people have, because naming is a discipline. It's not just something that everybody on the street should come up and think that they know how to choose a name and how to do branding and so on and so forth. So those are the things you're inviting when you say, do you like this? So these general questions that invite the people's generic opinions that they shouldn't be giving because they don't have the education and background to give, are the questions you should avoid.
Perfect. So then that brings us to the other side of the coin, Grant, is what does the person ask, when doing this?
Yep. 3 questions that I really love to ask, and I've seen some really, really interesting results come back again and again and again and again. One is what I call attention or interest. So which of these value proposition are you most interested in learning more about? So let's say that we're launching Apple, and their value proposition is a human-centric computer. Just for the sake of something simple. Which of these human-centric computer companies are you most interested in learning about? List the names, see which one people pick, get at least 100 responses. 300, 500 is even better. This tells me things like, what I believe it tells you, things like, if you saw that name in a vacuum, does it have the ability to pull? If you saw that on an ad, is that name going to help you pull more people or not? Also, I do think it starts to indicate if there's anything negative. So if nobody votes on it, there could be an underlying negative tone or negative connotation or negative meaning that that could be an issue for you. That's probably my favorite question because it's very broad and it gives you a lot of information very simply. Number 2 is brand alignment. So you take your core brand concept and then you ask which one of the names align with that. We had a really cool project. This was a while ago, and it was a rebellious toy company for older kids. So they said, which of these brands feels rebellious and rugged or something like that? And you do a multi-select in that situation. So you have 5, 6, 7 names, and you let people select which ones they think align with that brand. And typically you're going to have 2, 3, 4 core brand attributes that you can put in there. And then you can see which one of these is rebellious, which one of these is trustworthy, and you can go through the core brand attributes and figure out which ones are immediately creating that alignment. That's a really cool concept that I really like. The other one that I'll do is just a negative. Which one of these brands has a negative connotation? Do any of these brands have a negative connotation? We were doing an audience test recently, and we asked that question, and one of the names had the word class in it. And there's a lot of things going around right now about social and all these things that we all know about and we don't need to dive into. But I think that was getting flagged as a word that people, some people, it wasn't a huge issue, but there were definitely more people who were flagging that than other names. So it was an interesting thing to note that there was some negative connotation. Those are the 3 things that I really like focusing on. To help determine which of these brand names has the ability to pull, which of these brands names has the best align with my brand, and is there anything that I'm missing about this name, or are there any names that have some negative connotation that I may want to consider skipping over?
That's great, Grant. So we have the who do we ask, right? What we should never ask when doing an audience test, as well as the 3 main areas we should focus, or what should we ask during an audience test. So I think that's perfect, and this will give people great feedback on picking their perfect name, and
Right.
Absolutely.
Sounds good. Yeah, and the biggest thing that I like is the data. You walk away with another data point that you can come back to and helps you make a good decision. In an entrepreneurial venture, a lot of times data is really important, and this is another really important tool. But one piece of warning is you still, as I said earlier, have to come back to yourself, and this can't be the only tool you use. There's things you can't test. A brand story. Maybe the whole team is just really excited about how this comes to fruition, and it's going to be a very exciting brand. And sometimes you override the test because you have a vision and you're excited about that. So I don't think this is the only thing you should consider. There's a lot of advice in the naming world. You don't want to get too much feedback, and I think there's merit to that. You have to look at it, but you also have to be willing to follow some other trends as well.
That's great points, Grant. Well, thank you so much, and we're looking forward to sharing with you some more advanced naming strategies in the next video.
Absolutely. Thanks, Jonathan. Talk to you soon.
Thanks, Grant.